Okay, we are jumping into Kanister v D00MWake. It seems like Kanister is taking a mulligan, and I think D00MWake did too. Didn't get a great look at
Yeah,
those hands.
he had a double Rhinos opener. I don't think you can keep those.
Yeah, especially not against the Teferi deck. Doom 7 looks to be very good. You have turn 1 Lord revealed to fix your mana, although I'm not sure exactly how fixed it's going to be in your Shieldred deck. Ice into Shardless Agent. I'm not sure who's on the play. D00MWake is on the play.
Here you can answer that Teferi too.
That's true. And then Kanister, if I'm looking at it correctly, is keeping a somewhat risky one lander, but I think keeping these one land bean hands that just like as soon as you draw a land, you're starting to cantrip and you draw out of it. I think it ends up being pretty fine. After you mulligan a 6, would usually ship these hands away on 7, but Kanister doesn't seem to have too much choice in the matter. I'm assuming that there's a Water Grave. I haven't taken too close a look at D00MWake's mana base. I've got it pulled up over here. If there is a Water Grave, I imagine that's what's going to be grabbed off Lord revealed. Yeah, there is one. It'll be really interesting if Kanister just doesn't fetch. That would be pretty annoying for Doom, who wants to use the Fire Ice here. Typically, I like to fetch in these situations where, like, even though you only have one, you don't have a second land. Drawing a Triumph doesn't help you a ton anyways, since you still can't play your Beanstalk. So I would like to get the tap Triumph maybe, but there's also with the Fire Ice to consider playing around. Seems fine to not crack the fetch.
Yeah, I like that reasoning.
Does miss the second land drop, so we may see a pretty one-sided game if Kanister doesn't find another land really this next turn. It is good news for Kanister, I think, that he has Leyline Binding and Murderous Cut, where these are not cards that are going to get answered by Subtlety.
Yeah,
but I'm mostly just trying to find a silver lining here.
Yeah. Kanister priced into fetching now. Needs to be able to play a Leyline Binding this next turn.
Yeah.
It's bad, but I'm like thinking about their sideboards.
Yeah. Well, there's the next land. Like if there's a Solitude or Fury off the top for Kanister. Kanister's not playing. I guess not playing any Furies in the main deck. If there's a Solitude on top, it just gets Subtletied, but then it comes down again next turn, and I guess we're stabilized. Instead, there's a Time Warp, and then Kanister's going to get attacked down to 6.
Well, now that the Bean is in play, he fires off Solitude and he gets Subtletied. He can draw it off the Leyline Binding.
Yeah, that's true. And the binding is not getting Subtletied here, which is a start. I have a hard time imagining there's ever going to be a series of draws off the Bean that's going to get Canisters stabilized. Like you'd have to draw like another bind. You have to draw. I guess if you draw another binding, then you can fetch Basic Plains binding the other Rhino, and then I guess you're 1 mana short of Murderous Cut, anyways. It's like weirdly close to Kanister stabilizing.
Well, you could just play Binding plus Cut, right? As the 2 plays.
Right,
and then,
right.
And then take 2. Oh,
it doesn't beat the Subtlety.
Right.
3. Yeah, although I do think if Kanister were able to draw another binding, then that would stabilize. I guess now you can still play the cut, look for Solitude. Although Kanister may also think that he's no, I suppose like he's just still dead on board to the Salty plus Agent attack. I was kind of counting the Fire Ice also as the extra 2 damage.
All these free spells in Modern now. Mapping out lines.
Yeah.
Is like thinking about lines in Legacy these days.
Yeah. What's the deal with all the free spells? Modern Horizons 2? They should have called it Modern Horizons 0 because nothing costs mana anymore. All right. Well, we may have the fastest. If this keeps up, we're gonna have the fastest Super League week yet. We are gonna go ahead
and there's no Rakdos here.
And there's no Rakdos. That would be kind of funny if the week where someone registers 4-color ends up being the fastest out of all of them.
Yeah, we might have like up the beanstalk mirrors, somehow.
Yeah. What do you think? There's any interesting sideboard dynamic here on either side? For the most part, I'm not. I think it's going to be kind of straightforward.
It looks pretty straightforward, yeah. Kanister's coolest cards, like Commandeer, just like not that relevant. It looks like Warps came out entirely.
What I think Commandeer's kind of good. Stealing Rhinos, like Crashing Footfalls, at least is pretty backbreaking. I guess there's
You
not
like
that
it?
many other targets.
What would you?
I know I boarded it in the past.
Okay. Would you cut like the endurance and the sinkhole? Like, what would you look at cutting for them here?
Yeah, I usually like to cut the fire ices and the endurance. Let's see, there's
Okay.
3 commandeers. I'm not sure exactly what Cow Canister's build is built with the blue cards. It looks like it's probably still a pretty reasonable number. I guess you also probably want to get the Verdicts in too. Verdict is a card that usually is pretty good against Rhinos.
D00MWake is bringing a Commandeer in.
Yeah, I think Commandeer is great against the Bean decks. Although
Would you grab into Teferi?
Yeah, Teferi is good to grab. Honestly, even stealing up the Beanstalk for D00MWake isn't that crazy. I guess
you get a card back.
You get a card back, but you also have some 5-mana spells with like D00MWake's playing a Murderous Cut, playing a Fury, playing Lore Revealed. Like you can get some value off of it.
This looks like a great opener for Kanister.
I agree. Definitely makes up for that game 1. And I think we're gonna see another mulligan from Doom, although maybe he's talking himself into clicking the keep button.
With this one land on the draw.
Yeah, I wouldn't ever click the keep button on that, but I've seen Doom talk himself into some risky hands. Seems to keep a much more reasonable 6.
Yeah. There was a cantrip in that hand. So you hit the ice and then it just all works out, right?
Easy peasy. Do you? I imagine that up the Beanstalk gets force negationed here on turn 2. Kanister does have the nuts. Turn 2 Beanstalk on the play.
So I have such a small amount of experience with up the Beanstalk because the last month I've been going hard on Vintage Cube.
Right. Well, let me tell you, Caleb, the card is really broken. It is.
I know it's broken. I have played against it.
Okay,
but I'm not on the level of like whether I know you should be force of negation it or what have you.
I think I snap force of negation in this spot.
Okay.
So
you'd put it on the same level as like the One Ring in terms of like you just don't let it resolve.
Yeah, more or less. Like that's kind of what's crazy about up the Beanstalk is it really almost never like ends up trading negatively for you when you cast it. It's only 2 mana, it cantrips, and it starts generating card advantage like the turn after you play it. And it's just so obscene. But like a big part of the reason why it's obscene is that it's 2 mana and not 4 mana. When you compare it to the One Ring, like you are always happy to have any number of up the Beanstalk in your hand. You're like never upset to draw up the Beanstalk. It is just it's good in multiples. It's good on turn 2. It's good on turn 10. It is just always good. One Ring, you're gonna mulligan hands and have 2 copies of it in your opening hand a lot of the time, and so it is a little bit different the dynamic of like snap countering it or not. But I also don't think Doom's hand is like realistically going to beat a Beanstalk, so forcing it there seems pretty fine. I also don't think he's going to beat Teferi either.
Well, that's a bummer for Doom.
Yeah,
because Kanister, he's got a Teferi.
I mean, you could tap the Teferi maybe and deal a little bit of psychic damage. I think I probably would, but
just cycle the ice.
Yeah, just cycle the ice. You could maybe make an argument that holding up Beseiju for another Beanstalk is doing something.
Never point fire at Teferi to get it lower for
I don't know
other terrible burn spells.
yeah, I don't think that I would.
I don't think I would either.
I don't think I would. Kanister does maybe get to just time walk Doom in the upkeep here, although I guess doing that would tap you out of Leyline Binding with no black Triumph. But here's the Bean Killer, Shieldred the Apocalypse. Going to immediately get answered by binding, I would think. Although I guess it's also probably tempting to just take 2 and bounce out the Teferi.
Just an actual free time walk.
Yeah. Although Kanister just keeps drawing removal spells, we could be in kind of an interesting situation. I remember watching like LSV play a match of Vintage one time where he was dead. He had like 1 card in his hand and his opponent had 6. And he's like, well, I'm just gonna not do it. I'm just gonna not do anything and hope my opponent has all removal spells. And just like
Just has to start discarding.
yeah, and then that's exactly what happened. Opponent just like discarded 6 cards, LSV just drew 6 cards. It was one of the coolest games I've ever seen.
Basically what you do against standstill, but
Yeah.
without there being a standstill in play.
This is just so I guess we're in hardcast subtlety, just main phase it. No, we can't even do that. Doesn't have double blue. That Grixis Triumph is load bearing. That is a load bearing Grixis Triumph. Cannot afford for it to get tapped.
No double blue, no double black. Yeah. No red mana.
No red mana.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever worked as hard in my life as this Xander's Lounge is working right now.
I don't think so. Doom again decides not to play Beseiju, decides not to cycle the Fire Ice.
I like holding the Besiege. It doesn't do anything in play here.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We draw Lord revealed. Interesting to island cycle it.
You would just fire it off.
Maybe. I think that I probably would just want to jam the Shieldred again.
Card draw is fixing.
Yeah, and holding Beseiju for like Leyline Binding does seem fine. But we're just so, like behind so many cards that there's a chance like Kanister's hand is all creature removal, and you just like slam Lore and Revealed, and all of a sudden you're kind of caught up. Although I guess the Teferi does make it to where a big chunk of the cards in your deck don't do much.
I wonder if people are going to start Shardless Agenting into being in Legacy. It
Yeah.
seems rough because then you're giving up like Brainstorm.
That's fair. Yeah, I was, you definitely play a lot more Legacy than I do. But getting access to Force of Will alongside Beanstalk seems so good.
Yeah, people are playing it. I just haven't seen it with Cascaders yet.
Yeah,
haven't reached that level of sickness.
Maybe I'll just give it a go if nobody else will. Like, I'm sure someone's done it, but
you haven't gotten sick of Modern yet.
I don't know. It's like I was working a lot on the Cascade Bean deck, and it was like really exciting to like find it and mess around with it, and like. And now the Cascade Bean deck is really popular and kind of everywhere, and I find like most of the brews I'm coming up with just aren't as exciting. So maybe I will just dip my toes into Legacy for a bit.
Interesting. It looks like this Besiege is going to finally do something here.
Yeah. Firing it off in the upkeep is certainly a decision point, but I kind of feel like I don't know. It's a
I would probably try and eat the Shardless. It would fail,
Yeah.
of course, looking at Kanister's hand, but I think that's what I would try and do.
Did you ever respond to this bean trigger?
Looks like Doom would.
Actually really interesting because Kanister is taking, minimum four damage here to answer the Shieldred down to 9. And what DooMWake needs to do is just like draw 2 more Shieldreds.
Imagine, I'm sure you don't have to work too hard to imagine this, but like your whole hand being removal for Shieldred that also kills you because of your beans in play.
Yeah, I've been on that side of it a lot lately. Goes for a Magmatic Sinkhole instead of Solitude or Binding. Picks up another Teferi. And then resolving Shieldred trigger, another Fire Ice. And then I guess another card in the hand, which is Flooded Strand. Yeah, I actually do think if Doom just draws like Shieldred this turn, and then another Shieldred, And,
Whoa!
whoa! Man, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to see it. And this is, this is Doom's plan. I'm going to just play 4 Shielded and Rhinos. I'm going to cross my fingers.
And my bean opponents are just going to die, hopefully.
Yep. Kanister may be considering solituding Charlotte's Agent to go up 2 life. So it's probably better to just to vary the Shielded for a turn, but you'll be down to 7 after that. Okay, so
Oh yeah, I don't think you can to fairy bounce here.
yeah. So it looks like just going to Solitude Shielded itself, going down to 5.
Yeah, if you leyline binding it, then you're running the risk of another besiege you type effect or
Yeah.
war or what have you.
And I know Teferi is in play, but hypothetically, if Teferi wasn't in play, subtleting the Solitude would be kind of funny. Just giving Kanister infinite cards, but it would have to go down to 1 to get rid of the Shielded at that point.
Mm-hmm. Kanister needs an Omnath so bad.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that you mentioned when we were first shuffling up for this matchup.
Does thankfully have another Time Walk and, kicking that load-bearing Xander's Lounge out of here. Oh, and Supreme Verdict is not that I think that Kanister is going to have a hard time stabilizing the game from this point, but Supreme Verdict just being a 4-mana way to kill a Shieldred is just randomly so important because it doesn't trigger up the Beanstalk.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's huge.
But now we can, exile the Subtlety, start attacking, gaining some life. Maybe close to concession time for DoomWake, but we're here playing the Super League. We can give it one more draw for Shielded number 3, maybe.
The game's been fast enough so far. We got time.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch Kanister play some more beans.
Yeah, bean number 3. All beans, all removal spells. Doom has 3 dead cards in hand, 4 dead cards in hand. Teferi the Fun Raveler. Oh, I didn't realize Doom was also playing a Questing Beast in the sides. Just infinite 4-mana creatures. Let's see.
I think I need to bring in a removal spell against him.
You have Asmo at least. What?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
I usually shave Asmos against controlling type decks, but he's doing Rhinos, so they would stay in.
Yeah.
Just taking a bunch of turns with versus Shielded. But I guess you can just sack food.
Yeah, I think I boarded my Shielders out against you just because I think the card lines up pretty bad against Asmo itself.
I brought in One Rings against you. I should have told you that. That's what I did though. We might play again. The other week,
can we play again?
Yeah, the other week I played against Reed Duke twice.
Oh wow!
If you lose your next round and I win my round.
Well, maybe I'll just still board out Shieldreds, thinking you won't bring in rings this time.
Oh right, yeah. That was my plan. I'm just leveling you. What do we think about these hands?
They're both pretty bad, which I like a lot. I always love games of Magic where both players have bottom 30% of their draws, and you get to see a game that you don't usually get to see that often. I think that they're both currently on 6. Yeah, they're both currently on 6. They both have very mediocre hands, and I think that usually having mediocre hands favors the player on the draw. We'll see if that ends up being the case, and there ends up being probably the best possible top deck in Charlotte's Agent, or followed closely by Beans. Or maybe get the load-bearing Grixis Triome.
Yeah. Has there been an uptick in spell snare?
There has been, yeah. There's the Murktide / Questing Druid decks are pretty regularly main decking 2 spell snares. I even played against a deck that was playing 2 copies of a Null earlier today.
Oh, that's a card.
Yeah.
It shows up in pre-modern a lot.
Yeah, it actually is not looking so bad to me. I may reach for an annul sometime soon. I'm kind of shocked this Kolagon's command. Doom's a good friend of mine, so I feel like I can rib his deck list a little bit more than than most people's. I'm
Sure.
surprised the Kolagon's command made it in. I wonder if there's like a specific plan with the card here.
Looking at his hand, it looks like it's pitching to Fury.
Yeah, I think maybe that's the case. All right, we're cascading into Up the Beanstalk.
Have you ever seen someone subtlety their own shardless agents that can cascade again the next turn?
No, but that sounds sounds pretty sweet.
I was reading a Living End primer where like they said it was absolutely correct to do that if you think your opponent has a sweeper to make sure that you can. Anyway, that's why it was on my mind.
Yeah, that's very cool. I don't think I've seen a Living End player ever do that against me, but I suppose I haven't been playing a lot of sweepers lately. A little late on the fire ice. We could deal 2 damage to the shardless agent, and we could destroy it since it's both an artifact and a creature.
Nice. Yeah, very hard to find 2 modes for Kolaghan's command.
Yeah. All right, we have a nice ice, and then Kanister will play Teferi, and D00MWake will be pretty forced to subtlety it, and it'll be a pretty miserable feeling subtlety, I think.
And then you're just hoping to rip a Cascader.
Yeah, I think that would seem like a start for sure. Because since ripping a land for Shieldred isn't quite as effective into like Teferi just like bouncing it for a turn.
What about a land that doesn't play Shieldred at all?
That would not be high on my wish list if I were D00MWake. I would have loved to see like a blue card here that didn't line up well against Teferi, so you could Kolaghan's command and return subtlety to subtlety the Teferi again.
Playing out the Otawara.
Yeah,
I think I would have held that as like one of the few ways to get Teferi off the board on the Rhinos turn.
Yeah, I think holding it seems pretty reasonable. You can maybe be wanting to try to like hardcast Fury next turn.
Oh yeah,
and kill the Teferi.
It's a good consideration.
I'd have to double check that Omnath was actually castable. This happened to me at PT Barcelona. I had an opponent who had Zaggoth Triome, Breeding Pool, Island Forest, or something like that, and like just like tapped out 4 mana for an Omnath, and we had to do this like 20-minute judge call rewinding it.
Oh god.
Yeah.
And the judge has to be like absolutely sure that it's like an honest mistake in that situation.
Yeah, it was like a little extra confusing too because there's a language barrier and it just like took a long time to get through it. All right, Rhino's ticking down. Teferi not currently in play.
I'm just remembering last game where we were like cheering for the second Shieldred, and here's just like, oh no, another Shieldred.
I mean, getting Omnath off the field is nice, but doing it with a slightly, Cash gets to go up to 26 life here. It's gonna be a tall order from Shieldred to shoot through all those life points. It shocks in Breeding Pool to have Fire Ice and Leyline Binding up after this Teferi, or maybe you could just bounce your Shardless Agent and put second copy of Beans into play. So many draw triggers, and Shieldred just isn't there to catch them.
Yeah, how sad are these Shieldreds? Just watching from the sidelines.
Basic Forest.
The basic Forest. Brutal.
All right, splashing double black card, ambitious for sure.